We have lots of updates for 2209. I'm fully caffeinated, so we'll get through this. So yeah, we've got lots of changes, lots of partner priorities that we did this time. We'll go through and full release notes as always, aspentestbywatersolutions.com, admin release notes, so you can view them all, or when we deploy to your site, they're all there on your site as well. So let's start by looking at one of the things we did for vocal. So, and this is something that happens semi-frequently. So basically we've got a collection of materials that only check out to, you can only pick them up at the owning location, so there's no courier. So we have historically said like, hey, if you've got like toys and games that you want to be able to have those picked up only at the owning location, or in this case, everything. So patron could place a hold on it. They have to drive over to the next town to get it, but they can place the hold and pick it up that way. We've expanded that to be, in addition to only picking up at the owning library or the only owning location, we can also pick it up at the owning library or the holding library, whoever has it currently. As for some of the multi-branch libraries within a bigger consortium, so they've got couriers between their own buildings, but not to other buildings. So what this allows us to do is, in this case, Ilsley Public Library has another location that they want to be able to place holds at for patrons to pick up. So for example, we'll place a hold here. We can get materials to patrons as efficiently as possible while following all of our local loan rules. So this also used to be a checkbox, so it'd just be like pick up at holding location. Now it's dropped down. So by default, that's set to any valid location for everybody. For people that used to have that checkbox checked, it'll be holding branch. And then if you want to expand it out to holding library, you can do that. Next, we're going to move on to some indexing updates. So we've had for Koha libraries, we've been determining format based off item types, collection codes, shelf locations within the item records. We've had a few libraries request and say, you know, it's really better to get the information from the bib record. We've got our item types don't fully encapsulate what we want to do. We can get more information out of the bib record. So we've updated to allow people to choose bib record as an item. Previously, it didn't matter what you selected here for Koha libraries. It was always doing item record. So now you've got the option to choose. Koha libraries will be automatically updated to switch this to item record. So you would specifically need to switch it back to bib record if you want to do that. For most libraries, we're going to recommend keeping that at the item record level. But definitely there's some libraries where the cataloging makes sense to do it at the bib record level as well, especially like some of the big consortia and stuff where maybe your item types aren't just vary depending on the library. So good option there. The next thing we've added is the ability to hide subjects. So this is under catalog grouped works, hidden subjects. This has a new permission associated with it so that you can allow people to hide them or not. And this is for things like, we've got a couple examples here, but things like formats where we've got a bunch of ways to identify formats. So we don't necessarily want to have all of the formats kind of cluttering up the subjects, especially if they're inconsistently applied. So let's just do a search here and we'll find something that looks good. So let's look at some of these subjects. So like audiobooks is something that maybe we don't really want, just because we can filter those according to the formats, and that's better. And we'd rather have some of the more descriptive subjects. So let's say we want to get rid of that audiobooks. So we're going to go back to our hidden subjects. We're going to say add a new one, and we'll just start typing in audiobooks. Now we're going to get a autocomplete for this, and that will give you the exact subjects that can be hidden. So in this case, we'll just select audiobooks. It's going to save there for us. If we want to do both of those, we will need to say, let's suppress both of those. So we want to get rid of the compact disc ones as well. So as those index, they're going to get removed. So this is going to take overnight to completely remove all of those. But just a nice way to kind of clean up some of your indexes, get rid of the things that you do want to keep within your ILS to be able to find it that way. But from a patron standpoint, there's just kind of better ways to do that. So nice way to hide those. And then you won't be able to, so those will get hidden from all of those facets. So when we do the search, obviously they're not going to be all gone now because I haven't done a full reindex. But in those subjects, they're going to start going away. So right now we have 3546. We could go through and say, let's go into Pride and Prejudice. And if we say down into the staff view, we're going to force our reindex so that that gets reindexed. And when we come back, it'll take a couple of minutes. And then that number will drop to 3545. And go back while we wait for that to index for a minute and answer some of the questions in chat. So there's a question about, will the dropdown only show the available pickup branches? And yes, it will. So it's only going to show things. So in this case here, when I did the search, it's only going to show places that in this case, that own it or that are part of that library. So before, what it was doing, we're going to just change that back to holding branch, which was the old behavior. And now when I go to place hold, did I do that on the right one? Let's go back to formats and books. I'm going to say books are at the holding branch only. So now when we go to place a hold, it would only show Ilsley. Should only, oh, okay, we're going to look at that. Or maybe book. Oh, there's another one that's books. So it's doing a reverse lookup on this. So it's going to find the one. So it's looking at the format book. And then, oh, looks like we can mute yourself if you're not. Great. So it's going to find the first one there. So in that case, it was looking at the AWD one. So it's doing the reverse lookup to try to figure out what it should do. So here we go. We're going to do a place hold. So in this case, it's Ilsley only because they're the only ones that own it. But if we say any library in that, any branch in the, or any location within the library can pick it up, then we get both the Ilsley and the Sarah Partridge. Then the other question was choosing bib record for some item types and some use item types. So yes, you can. So the trick there is if you are on item record, and there's things like maybe we don't want to say, so we want library of things to be done by item type, but not adult fiction, because adult fiction, the way we shelve things maybe can be books or large print, or maybe we shelve our playaways or something there as well, or graphic novels. So we can just delete that. So you would, if you're doing item record, you would keep the value, just delete the format, and then it will know to fall back onto the bib record. So lots of options for determining format. Okay, so then let's just see if this has had an opportunity to index 3546. Yep, so now we're down to 3545. And that title is no longer shown. So just a nice way to clean up that index. Another thing we did, another partner priority, we spent a bunch of time working on improving the indexing speed. So for some partners, we found one partner where it was from like 16 hours down to 5. And a lot of people, it's cutting off like an hour worth of indexing time. Not something you notice necessarily, but huge performance improvements there. So that's been really nice. Another fun thing we got to work on was for the WILD Consortium, which is the entire state of Wyoming. In order to place holds, they actually need to use an interlibrary loan system, just because the state of Wyoming is so big that it can take 8-10 hours in order to move a book from side to side of the state. So they are forcing pickups so you can place direct holds for things that are nearby, and then also use the interlibrary loan request system in order to get things from farther across the state. So the system they're using is called VDX. We have the ability to define the groups of libraries that are allowed to borrow kind of directly with each other, and then anything not in those groups, you have to fill out a form to request. So the way that works then is within the search results here. So we're going to do a search for Devil's Towers. I'm going to look at all wild libraries to see things that aren't close to me. So like here, this Devil's Tower title is currently available from another library, but I don't own it. So we've got lots of copies, but none of them are owned by Laramie County. So I need to place a request. So I'm going to do a request there. These are configurable. So the different forms are configurable so that they can decide like, are fines required, that kind of thing. What information are you prompting for? Are you prompting for ISBN? Are you prompting for additional notes? That kind of thing. So those can all be configured. And I'm just going to put that this is a test request and place that request. Once those requests are placed, then we're able to see those within the patron's account. So in this case, we've added an interlibrary loan requests tab in addition to the physical materials, the Overdrive, other e-content, et cetera, and we can see those. It takes a little while for those to get submitted into the system. So as soon as they update, then they're shown there. There it is, there's Devil's Tower. And then those requests can be canceled as well from the system. So just a nice way to fix that workflow for some of the large states that we work with. So in addition to those things, so another thing I wanted to talk about was Overdrive updates. We've done some performance indexing, some performance improvements to that, especially for libraries that have a lot of Advantage collections. So that's quite a bit faster now, up to 10 times faster is what we're seeing right now. For a lot of libraries, that won't make a difference, but for some of those big ones, it makes a huge difference. Then single sign-on is something that our friends at PTFS Europe are working on, setting up the single sign-on. It's something that will require help to get set up, but they are doing a lot of work on that. So we wanted to make sure that was all called out, and exciting to see that work progressing. In addition to that, there's lots of bug fixes and that kind of things. And then I'm going to turn it over to Jordan to talk about some of the LIDA updates.
Hi, everyone. Let me get my screen shared. So the big project that we had this month that Kirsten spent a lot of her time working on is the notifications for saved searches. So if you recall us talking last month, this is kind of our foray into app notifications, and we have them working. So the first thing I want to show you is how patrons would turn these notifications on. So I'm in the LIDA app. I'm going to go into my account, preferences, manage notifications, and then we have a toggle right here to allow notifications. Now, notifications, right now you're seeing an emulator. It's on my computer, just kind of emulates the app. We can't turn it on in emulators, but I promise you in the app, we've been testing it. When you come here, this toggle will turn on and you will get notifications. I also want to show you what that notification is going to look like. Again, it's kind of a tricky thing to demo. But what you're seeing right now is just a screenshot I took on an iPad of the title of the notification that came up. It says new titles have been added to your saved search, and then the title of the saved search. My title's a little funky here because I was testing different saved searches. So you're added to your saved search at the library and then check them out. And if you click on that, it will go to the saved search. So a couple different notes here. The first one is that for saved searches, these are anytime there's a new update, and we're looking at this one daily. So as we were testing it, I had this search right here, new added in the last day. And new titles, especially Hoopla titles, were being added every single day, and I wasn't getting notifications. And it took us a little bit to figure out, oh, the switch that we're looking at is, did it go from no new titles on one day to having new titles on the next day? So I wasn't getting notifications because there were new titles every day. So the status was never really switching. So what we've done is we've said, okay, if there are new titles like every other day or every few days, you're going to get that notification. If it's something where you're being notified every day, then we're just going to push that notification once a week. If you have a saved search like this that's added, that's new titles added in the last day, you're going to know that there's new titles, and there's no reason to notify you every single day. Another note on the deep linking. So we've done everything we can to direct you right to the list that has the saved search. We use React Native to develop LIDA, and there is a known bug with React Native that if you have the app completely closed, so not like open in the background or anything like that, if it's completely closed, then it has trouble doing that deep linking. So the notification will still come, but it will open in the app for you. And that's not all the time. It's like I said, it's a well-known bug. It happens more in Android. But if the app is completely closed and it's opening the app for you and not going directly to that list, that's why. Okay, so that's what the patron sees. We do have some settings on the Aspen admin side as well. So within Aspen Discovery Administration, we started to realize that we had LIDA settings sprinkled kind of throughout Aspen admin, and it might make sense to consolidate those. So we did that, and you will see now that we have an Aspen LIDA setting, set of settings right down here. So some of these settings you're familiar with, you've seen them in the other parts of Aspen admin, but this is where we've moved them to. There are two new ones, notification settings and notifications report. So I'm going to go ahead and open notification settings in a new tab. Okay, so here you can have a different set of settings for different notifications, and you'll see why we need that in just a minute. So first, you're going to go ahead and name your notification settings, and then you can select whether it's disabled, it's only staff users, or all users. So I would suggest to everyone, what you might want to do is go in and change this to only staff users and go ahead and test this just so you can see how it's working, you understand how it's working, and that's going to be working off of Oh no, Kirsten, Kirsten and Mark, is this the P type, or is this anyone that has Aspen admin?
It's
for the staff settings.
It's the P type. If it's been flagged as a staff, treat a staff.
Thanks, Kirsten. So go ahead and go in here and you can, I would test it with only staff users for a little while. It's working the way you want it to. Then you can come in and switch it to all users. Now this is going to need to be turned on, and the user will have to enable the notifications in your app. Keep in mind, you have to do both of those things. We also have the notification type right now. Now today we only have saved searches, but as you know, we're looking at adding more. So you could have different settings for different notification types, and then the libraries that it applies to. So that's how you would set up the notifications for your library. The second thing that we have is a notifications report, and we found this really helpful in testing. So this is just something that says who got the notification when it was sent, whether that notification was completed, whether there were any errors. So just kind of a little bit of a debugging thing here. And the idea for this actually came out of the meeting that we had about 2 weeks ago, I think, on notices, that everyone kind of wanted a little bit more to see on the staff side. And then we'll also be working on the patron side, what notices were sent. I will check the chat to see if we have any questions on notices. And then, so Jenny says, would be easier to parse if you added the quotes around the title of the saved search. That's definitely a good suggestion. We will look at doing that. Because as you can see, depending on the title, it can get the grammar gets a little funky. And that's what we have for, let's call it LIDA updates in an instant.